Now you've
That's
got
right.
another matter, which is we've talked about this many, many, many times on this show, so I'm going to try and abbreviate the setup on this so we can get to what's been happening most recently with you on this. And that is that as one of the people of several states, you obtained a exempt license plate for the automobile that you convey in, and you were pulled over for ostensibly throwing sunflower seeds out the window, but the guy really wanted to mess with your exempt plates, and because you had no DL, they wanted to write you a ticket. We talked about that on this show briefly. Since then, you went to court. You were told to sit at the criminal table, right, or the defendant's table in the criminal court.
Yes. And that was for a restraining order. Now, the criminal matter, which is a separate matter for driving without a license, they appointed a counsel from the public defender's office. And the public defenders, they kept referring to me as well as a sovereign citizen, and I could tell I didn't really have their attention. So I mailed the public defender assigned to my case, I mailed him a letter using the 3-cent postage explaining that I'm from a completely different jurisdiction, and that got his attention. And he began to pull files and do discovery requests, both with the DMV.
So, Corey, I just want to pause for a second because we got to remember these low risk, high reward actions.
That's right.
You know, we all know people that if you listen to this podcast, you know somebody that's in and out of the court all the time because they're dealing with something and they're on the cusp of, getting their day in court. And just imagine if they did what you just did. Just send the prosecutor and the public defender a 3-cent letter explaining your situation, that you're not in their jurisdiction, and see what happens. I love that idea.
Yeah, well, the main thing was to explain that, hey, this other jurisdiction exists. You know, I'm not making it up. The post office, the United States Postal Service, through the Postal Reorganization Act from the early 70s, it inherited both the assets of the United States Post Office Department, which was what was established by Benjamin Franklin, but it also inherited the liabilities. And the liability of the United States Post Office Department was to deliver the mail at the rates set by the 37th Congress. And that is something that a lot of people are not aware of. And so I mailed, explaining to the public defender, I mailed him a letter and mailed it to him prior to our meeting. He did say he would give me 2 hours on a Friday afternoon to come in and meet with him. I asked him for his business card and said, I'll mail you a letter, outlines my position prior to me getting there. So I mailed the letter, and before I got there, one of the other public defenders that came in said, congratulations, it's tough to get our attention. And so, they're overworked. These guys, I'm amazed at through that process of seeing how many cases a single public defender has to handle in a very short period of time. And, I can't afford to hire an attorney to handle this case. I was really impressed with the dedication and the sincerity of everyone in the public defender's office. Once they were made aware of this other jurisdiction, they really ran with it. And
then got booted off the case.
Pardon me?
And then got booted off the case.
Well, they got booted off the case because after obtaining, records, and we didn't actually get the records from Social Security, but they were in the process of obtaining the records from Social Security. And when the prosecutor found out about that and looked at everything on the case, the prosecutor removed the case from a criminal matter and moved it down to a infraction.
This is such a critical juncture, and I know we've gone over this so many times, Corey, on these podcasts, because it's nearly 2-year-old matter right now.
Yeah.
In June it will be, and I know it might be redundant to some, but every time I hear this stuff, I hear something new. And the new thing here is that when they turn what happened right before they turned a criminal matter, because if you get a speeding ticket or driving without a license, and they want you to sign a ticket, you're bonding yourself. That's a criminal matter. And we've talked about that. Brotherton has beat that up hard and in the courts and in Orange County. And So it's a criminal matter. So here you come with the public defender and ask them to do what they're supposed to do, and that is get a discovery for your case. And you ask them to go look up the records related to the birth record, so you can explain this other jurisdiction and all the things you've been working on. And when that prosecutor hears what you're up to, that's when he elects to make it an infraction because of discovery.
Yes,
he did not want that shit coming forward.
Yeah, they did not want that.
That's why they did that. Not because, I mean, it was not whether you're going to lose or win. It was, man, this is going to be a messy deal where you get to talk about all this stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it goes to infraction. Sorry, I just wanted to emphasize that the discovery, I think, is what triggered that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. The discovery is what triggered it 100%. In fact, they had the defense team and the investigator for the defense team had met with me just prior to a hearing, a pretrial hearing for the criminal matter, and needed me to sign an authorization to get records again. Now, Social Security was doing everything they could to block those records from being released. And so I had to authorize, I think it was the third release that I had to authorize for them to obtain the records. The Social Security kept changing the way things were going about. Now, I've come to understand that at the time, I had not properly terminated the political pledge with Social Security. I had changed the application and in good faith operated as the authorized representative of the birth record, which is the taxpayer, and it is the person, the corporate ens legis entity that is associated with Social Security. So once the prosecutor became aware of it that day, then the prosecutor came back and they do what's called infracting it. They eliminated all the criminal potential, so there's no potential for jail time.
Infracting.
Yeah. And because there's no potential for jail time, you no longer get a public defender.
Oh,
and so that was
no more discovery assisted by the state for you.
That's right. So now we go into just the normal, fleecing of the sheep traffic trial. And one of the things that I asked the officer, because I was aware of them filing their oaths in the miscellaneous section, I was aware of them not having a chief of police appointed correctly, and I was aware that the officer had been denied the ability to submit the ticket into the record, and that he had to go back and swear under penalty of perjury with another document that he had corrected the errors on the ticket, which he never did. And the error is identified again by the Judicial Council's rules on citations. And one of those rules is the citation must be signed by the defendant. Now, I don't claim to be the defendant. I'm not the person on the state-issued birth record. I have nothing to do, nor will I ever identify myself as government property willingly. The signature is clearly that of an authorized representative of that ens legis person. And so the courts rejected the citation, and the citation was not allowed into the record.
So simply put, they didn't like the way you signed this ticket, so they wouldn't let him enter it, and they made him go back and do it again.
Exactly.
Okay. And so he repeated the same mistake over because why?
Well, he didn't repeat the same mistake. What he did was he signed another form that said, there was a mistake on the citation, so I'm now signing under penalty of perjury that I corrected all of that, and now we can move forward without the citation.
And how can he correct your signature?
Well, he didn't. He lied. He committed perjury. And I brought that up in court, and of course none of it mattered.